No one listens to your shit.
Ooh!
Merry Christmas!
Hello lovelies, I'm terrible at pimping my stuff, so here I am, pimping my stuff. Please like, subscribe, and most important of all, share, so that people can discover me and all the wonders that I offer. Hello my lovely darlings. Some of you seem to like this cheap and easy video format, which is unfortunate because I spent all that money on stock film footage, subscription, and proper editing software and effects packages and everything. And you just like me sat here talking without so much as a backing track, you bastards. Yeah, that flurry of videos, the one about porn, obviously, seems to have attracted some blowback in public and private for some reason. And I'm kind of getting it from both sides. So on the one side, people are saying, oh, you're betraying people who supported your cause in the past. And on the other side, why are you disagreeing? You know, you're on the same side as these fascists and whatever. I've always been left-wing. I've always been a libertine. I've always been pro-free speech and free expression. So how is it surprising to anyone that I would be against Ian Miles Chong or Torba or any of these people? You know, I've sided with them in the past where they've agreed with me, but why would that mean I would side with them now when they disagree with me? It's almost as if I'm a man of principle rather than a dishonest shill. But of course, it's none of my business. But porn, yeah, I don't think it's sufficient to simply say that porn doesn't do harm. I think porn is a positive, or at least a net positive, for society. Because even a lot of the people who are speaking up in defense of porn, or at least against censorship, are only saying, it doesn't do that much harm, or comparing it with nicotine or alcohol, which, are actual poisons. Not that I'm arguing that we should control them either. It should be your personal choice and so on. But porn isn't like that. It's not a poison. It's not a disease. It's not a naturally addictive substance. Right? You can get addicted to anything. Extreme sports, yo-yoing. Why porn is such a particular concern to people, I don't know. Christian hangover, maybe? Religious hangover? But a lot of these people on the right are wailing about it. A lot of people on the left have been wailing about it. Very little actual caring about what the statistics or the science says goes on. But yeah, I think we can make a positive case for porn, not just it doesn't do any harm, not just comparing it to things that do harm, but which you should have the right to use in moderation. I mean, even short fat otaku was kind of mealy-mouthed or damning with faint praise when it came to talking about porn. Me, I'm a free speech advocate. I'm a sexual expression advocate. I don't follow the winds of the algorithm to try and check what's popular, which is why I have such a small channel. So here we go. Porn is a positive. There is a positive argument you can make for porn. Wanking is good for you. Male or female, wanking is good for you. It improves your sleep. It releases a whole bunch of good hormones, like oxytocin, dopamine, a whole bunch of others, which are good for you, which give you a sense of well-being, relax you. If you're having trouble falling asleep, have a wank, then go to sleep. The stereotype of men falling asleep after sex, there's a reason for it. And so wanking can help with that. It makes it easier to orgasm if you're having trouble orgasming, and if you've got side effects from medication and so on, which can make pleasure harder to feel, or can make it difficult for you to come, or you have some other problems with that. Regular wanking can make it easier. It's true for women, it's true for men who are having problems, and it can also help you The other way, if you suffer from premature ejaculation, a regular hand shandy can help you learn to control yourself, or learn where your edge is, where the point of no return is, so that you can pace yourself better when it comes to actually making love. So it's good for you there. Regular self-diddling can increase your sex drive if you suffer from a low sex drive. This is particularly true of women, but it's true of both sexes. Sex drive is another thing that can be diminished by various medications and so on. And having a regular wank and exposing yourself to hyperstimulus can be good for restoring that sex drive, or bringing it back, or making it appear in the first place. And counterintuitively, stroking the Wookiee can actually boost your self-esteem. Now, we tend to think of masturbation and watching porn as some sort of shameful thing, but that's a societal choice that we make to shame people for something that's perfectly natural and normal, and something that pretty much everybody does. Probably everybody does, and those few who don't are liars, and you shouldn't trust them. But it's actually good for your self-esteem if you can overcome that shame, certainly. And that shame is something we have a choice over. Economically speaking, the porn industry, the sex worker industry, is a good thing. In the US alone, it makes somewhere between $6 and $15 billion per year. It's more profitable and accessible work for people who are on the breadline, particularly for women when they're in difficult circumstances. Sex work can be an immensely profitable and accessible way to climb out of poverty or to get yourself an education. It's an option that's not as available for men, unfortunately. Believe me, if people wanted to see a middle-aged, beardy gothabilly naked, I would be prancing around on camera with my cock out day in, day out. Trust me. That would be a much easier way to make money, but nobody wants to see that, so I don't. But yeah, so it keeps people off welfare. It gives people access to an education, and it's particularly available to people in marginalised groups. A lot of trans people work in the sex industry, and legitimising, properly regulating, treating it as a genuine and honourable profession, that seems to me to be the way forward, rather than trying to shame people or illegalise people or shut down the industry. It appears to do no harm. It appears to have a lot of goods. And amongst those goods is positive economics. It's not just positive economically. However, to make that argument is to make essentially a right-wing capitalist argument, which you can do, but that's not my political leaning or ideology. I would say pornography is positive socially. Now, it's only a correlation. Correlation does not equal causation. But the accessibility of porn has been strongly correlated with a massive, precipitous decline in sexual assault and rape. Just steep, whoosh. 1995 or so, mass access to the internet and thereby porn comes in. A bit later on, smartphone accessibility comes on, and whoosh, it's a ski slope. Now, there is an uptick at the end of these graphs. So I think I've used the USA graph. It's pretty much the same globally, or at least as far as first world nations go. Accessibility to the internet and pornography, and whoosh, you have a massive decrease in sex crimes. Now, that has upticked lately, and if you look at the newspapers, you'll see things like massive increase in rapes and sexual assaults. It's a bit misleading. The Great Recession came along in 2008 onwards. Negative economics have an increasing effect on all crime. Reporting methods and so on have changed, and so that's contributed to the uptick. And here in the UK, certainly, we've had a couple of big high-profile cases like the grooming gangs and Operation U-Tree, which has increased the recorded number a lot. You also have to consider that the amount has declined to such a degree that even a small increase bumps up the statistics. But even so, even with the recent increases, it's nowhere near 95. That last bit's probably worth a little bit of explanation. Once you've reduced something to a very low level, any fluctuation can seem big in percentage terms, right? So say last year, one person was beaten to death with a rubber chicken. Okay? So we record one rubber chicken assault resulting in death in 2018. This year, weirdly, for some reason, 2 people have been beaten to death with rubber chickens. All right, so we've gone from 1 rubber chicken homicide to 2 rubber chicken homicides. But the Daily Mail or the Daily Express or Fox News or whatever would report that as 100% increase in number of rubber chicken related fatalities. Or rubber chicken fatalities double in 1 year. And then you might get politicians saying, well, the number of rubber chicken-based fatalities has doubled in a year, so clearly we need to bring in restrictions on rubber chickens. No more assault chickens, no more high-capacity chickens. Squeakers must be removed. Yeah, something like that, right? Because the percentage doesn't really it doesn't really fit, because just 1 is enough to double it. And that's another part of the reason we see this uptick. Recording, more reporting, people are encouraged to report, and so on. So it's not an entirely accurate reflection. And it's only a correlation anyway, but still, the overall trend is down. And it does coincide with the mass access to porn. Correlation, again, not causation. But if you're trying to argue that pornography makes people more likely to engage in rape and sexual assault, then you have to explain why this massive increase in accessibility to porn has not been concurrent with a massive rise in this, particularly in the UK, where we had rather strict obscenity laws up until the internet took a big old piss all over them. Pornography encourages a more healthy and open attitude to sex. Now, lots of people would argue against this because they have a strong personal disgust reaction to something that other people like. But, you know, your kinks are your kinks, so long as it's all consensual and nobody's getting hurt in any permanent or horrible way, and they're fine with being hurt in that particular way, then I don't see that it's anybody's business, quite frankly. And even groups that have tried to campaign against porn or to present a real sex alternative, I think it's called Make Love Not Porn was one of the campaigns. But you go through their stuff and they're talking about various sexual acts and so on. And the worst that they can say is that this is an act that's typically appears in pornography. Your partner may not like this. Some people do. So whether it's bukkake or BDSM or whatever else, the worst you can say about any particular sex act is really, it might not be for you, but some people like it. It reminds me of when I used to work on drug education, and there's 2 drugs that you can't really say anything bad about, but they wanted us to say something bad, otherwise it would sound like we were encouraging people. And one of those was mushrooms, which I've only ever had positive experiences with. But the only really bad thing you can say about psilocybin mushrooms is you might pick the wrong ones. so that's what we went with. You know, pornography fills a gap in terms of sex education. Sex education in schools tends to be either very dry and mechanical and biological, or very judgy, or non-existent at all. And porn fills that gap in a way that it probably shouldn't, but it does fill that gap. So if you're wondering why little Timmy and little Janie are learning about sex from Pornhub, and that their idea of sex is performative, pornographic sex, it's because you're not providing them a decent, chilled out, open, healthy sex education. And ironically, of course, many of the self-same people that are against pornography would be against decent sex ed, are against decent sex ed, particularly LGBTQ plus whatever education, which I'm for. You know, you don't want to be that one kid in class who's gay and not receive information that that's all right. You know, I wasn't gay, I wasn't bi, I was kinky. We never touched on any of that stuff in any of our classes, and we had relatively enlightened sex ed at various times. And it would have been a real positive for me to know that this was a thing that people were into, and it didn't make you a huge freak. Instead, I had to find that out from the internet and from science fantasy novels, that I wasn't a total freak, just a slight one, you know, that there were other people like me. And at the moment, Porn and So On provides for that. So if you want to get rid of porn, are you willing to allow people into schools to teach about actual sex, how pleasurable it is, how you shouldn't be ashamed of your body or the things that you're interested in, how to negotiate consent, the existence of LGBTQ plus people, the existence of kinky people? No? Shut the fuck up then. There's a lot less shame, I think, and that's good. You know, we guilt is one thing that comes from inside you. Shame is something that's imposed on you, and healthy societies, positive mental health outcomes, and so on, come with less shame. Yeah, there's some times when shame is a good thing, but by and large, if it's just something natural, pleasurable, something that everybody does, what's the point in shaming people for it? It reminds me of arguments against abortion, and one of the anti-abortion arguments is, oh, it's terrible for the mental health of the woman who has the abortion. You know, she feels racked with guilt and so on. That's only really the case in America, at least on a societal scale, if you look at a cohort demographic of people who've had abortions. Elsewhere, where people aren't shamed and guilt-tripped and constantly have their nose rubbed in this idea that somehow a cluster of cells is equivalent to a fully cognizant, sentient human being, where that doesn't happen, the mental health outcomes are a lot more positive. So it's the shame, not the abortion, that is causing the problem. And here, when it comes to sex, it's the shaming and the harassment and the idea that it's somehow terrible, bad, and wrong. That's the problem, not the porn, not the sex itself. And the fact that internet pornography is so accessible that everybody knows that everyone is at it has decreased shame and given us a much healthier and more open attitude to sex, I think, at least in my lifetime. I guess I'm fortunate in that I saw the world in a pretty repressed, non-internet accessible society for my early years, and then during my adolescence and my young adulthood is when the internet really came in and made that big difference. So I've seen the before and after, and it does seem a lot more positive to me. Yeah, and strip clubs, pornography and so on, it's not associated with some kind of big increase in prostitution or anything. Doesn't seem to have any effect at all. If it does have any effect, it's probably negative, because why pay 500 quid for an escort when you can stay at home and jerk off, quite frankly. There's also a positive effect in that pornography reveals the truth that so many of us are so uncomfortable with. And I would strongly suggest that you read Porn Panic and A Billion Wicked Thoughts on this subject to get some kind of non-hysterical outlook onto porn and how it interacts with society. But it does reveal the truth about us. So, in America, certain states have a certain reputation when it comes to race interactions. And what do you think are the most searched pornography terms in those states? You guessed it, interracial. There are places in this world where people can be flung off buildings for being chutney ferrets, shirt lifters, fudge packers, gay people, bean flickers, you know, however you want to put it. And what do you think are the most searched for porn terms in those countries? Gay and lesbian. These porn statistics, and I think that's a great public service that Pornhub does for us all, reveal the truth. That for all we act one way in public, for all we might appear to be bigoted and small-minded and racist and anti-LGBT, when you drill down beneath the surface to something as raw and as basic as our sexuality, that doesn't lie. And a more honest and truthful society has a hell of a lot going for it as well. So porn, it's not just not bad, it's good. Zang.
While it's free, online can waste all your time and gathers a lot of scorn. What's great for a wank and monkeys to spank? It's porn, porn, porn. It's porn, porn. It's great, it's sexy, gives wood. It's porn, porn. It's better than bad, it's good. Everyone wants some porn. You're gonna love it, porn. Come on and get your porn. Everyone needs some porn. From Pornhub.
Sure, you could play one of those hoity-toity horror games where the most horrifying thing that happens is someone wearing a corset who really shouldn't. Or you could grind a zombie's face into a belt sander. Merry Christmas! Ho, 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 ho.